Good evening, everybody. It's Wednesday night, so it's another Halacha and Tanya. We're middle of the Dinam of Muktzeh. So we're learning about what's called Kli SheMelachto LeIsser, which means, again, a vessel whose primary use is for something forbidden. So you're only allowed to move it if you need the place where it's on, or if you need to use it for something permissible. Okay, that's what, and just we're learning at the examples now because it's very practical when you hear the examples and you understand what's what. So for instance, pens, markers, pencils are Kli SheMelachto LeIsser because they're primarily they're made for writing, which is forbidden on Shabbat. So therefore, a cheap pen, a cheap marker, it's called Kli SheMelachto LeIsser. Okay, and therefore, if you need the pen to get something, a marker, whatever, then you'd be allowed to use the pen for something permissible. But what happens if somebody has a very expensive pen, like an artist's pen, or very tradesman pens, things like that are very, very expensive, and the person would not use them for anything else but for artistic things. That is a different category of Muktzeh. And we'll talk more about it a little bit. We're discussing about musical instruments. That if they're very expensive, you have a $10,000 violin, you're not going to use it as a bookmark. I mean, you're not going to use it for anything but playing music. So then that would be completely Muktzeh. That's called Muktzeh Machsor in Kiss. It's completely Muktzeh, and we'll discuss more details of those types of dinam later. But we're talking about a simple, cheap pen or pencil or marker, that you don't care what you're using for. Those are Kli SheMelachto LeIsser. Staplers, hole punchers, you're not allowed to use them on Shabbos. You're not allowed to staple things on Shabbos, because when you staple things on Shabbos, it's like sewing. Actually, you're sewing the papers together through the stapler. So a stapler is, again, Kli SheMelachto LeIsser. So if you want to use it as a book, to hold up a book or to keep down a page, you'd be allowed to do it. But if you're afraid it's going to get stolen or lost, or you don't need the place that it's on, you just want to move it to put it away, you wouldn't be allowed to do it. Paper clips are not Muktzeh at all on Shabbos. Paper clips, you're allowed to use a paper clip on Shabbos. Even though a paper clip is connecting two pieces of paper, but you're not stapling it together. It's not something that you're actually sewing something together. A paper clip is just holding 10 pieces of paper together. So paper clips are allowed to be used on Shabbos. If you're allowed to use paper clips on Shabbos, so then they're not at all Muktzeh. So even if you don't need the place or whatever, you'd be allowed to put paper clips where they belong. Another interesting example is an umbrella. An umbrella is forbidden to be used on Shabbos. Okay, that's the halacha. Almost all opinions say that an umbrella is not allowed to be used on Shabbos. Why? Because when you use an umbrella, you're creating a tent, and creating a tent is one of the lamitas melachos, one of the 39 biblical melachos in Shabbos. So therefore, because an umbrella is primarily used as an umbrella to open it up and protect it from the rain, so it's a Kli SheMelachto LeIsser. So if somebody left the umbrella on the dining room table, you need the place, again, you can take the umbrella and you can move it. Or
can you close it?
No, you can't close an umbrella.
It's left open. Okay.
Now, what happens if somebody wants to use it as a walking stick in the house? Or, excuse me, umbrella has a handle, so if you need to get something up on top somewhere, it's very easy to use an umbrella to pull it down, So then you'd be allowed to use an umbrella on Shabbos, because then it's Kli SheMelachto LeIsser, and then you're using it for something which is Seirel Gufa. You're using it for something permissible on Shabbos. Let's say, for instance, toothbrushes, and this is interesting then. In order to be able to brush your teeth on Shabbos, some people just don't. But in order for those opinions that are lenient, that you're allowed to brush your teeth on Shabbos, it's permitted only under certain circumstances. Number one, you cannot use toothpaste. Toothpaste, that's a paste, is not allowed to be used on Shabbos because you're smearing the cream, which is forbidden on Shabbos. So number one, you cannot use toothpaste. You need to have a special toothbrush for Shabbos. There's a reason. I don't want to get into all the halachic reasons for this, but if you want to brush your teeth on Shabbos, you must have a special Shabbos toothbrush that's soft. If possible, a lot of poskim write, you shouldn't wet the toothbrush because then you're squeezing water out of the bristles of the toothbrush. So they write preferably the toothbrush should be dry. Another thing is when you finish brushing your teeth, you cannot wash off the toothbrush. Because if you're not using it anymore on Shabbos, then you're preparing for after Shabbos. So if you're planning to brush your teeth on Shabbos with a toothbrush, you can't wash it off afterwards because that's preparing from Shabbos for after Shabbos. And lastly, if your gums don't bleed when you brush your teeth. In other words, if you brush your teeth and you have very delicate gums and soft gums, that they bleed every time you brush your teeth, you're not allowed to brush your teeth on Shabbos because you're causing blood. Causing to bleeding on Shabbos is forbidden. So you're not allowed to cause bleeding. But if all these conditions are met, you have a separate toothbrush, you don't use toothpaste, if you preferably don't wet it, you can't wash it afterwards, and your gums don't always bleed, then halachically you're allowed to use a toothbrush on Shabbos. Now, if you're allowed to use the toothbrush on Shabbos, then it's not Muktzeh. But the toothpaste container is Muktzeh. So the toothpaste is Kli SheMelachto LeIsser. Okay? If it's Kli SheMelachto LeIsser, you can only move it if you need the place or you want to do something permissible with it. But people should be aware. And by the way, while we're on brushing teeth, I just want to mention it then, I believe we learned it already. Is somebody allowed to floss the teeth on Shabbos? So the answer is like this. Number one, you're not allowed to tear dental floss. Okay, and you can't tear anything to size. So let's say you use those, those green, whatever they call them, their picks and their dental floss, but you don't have to cut anything. Or you cut them before Shabbos. Cut the dental floss before Shabbos. Or if you're the only one using that dental floss, you pull it out, you use it, but you don't cut it. So that's condition number one. You can't cut it. Condition number two is if your teeth always bleed when you floss, then you're not allowed to floss on Shabbos. If your teeth sometimes bleed and sometimes don't bleed, then because it's unintentional, it's not secretion, meaning it's not for sure going to happen that they'll bleed because sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So then you'd be allowed to floss your teeth on Shabbos. But those two conditions must be met. You can't cut the dental floss and your teeth cannot always bleed. And the same thing is with the toothpaste and so on. The same thing, shoe polish brushes. That's, how to polish your shoes on Shabbos. It's a Kli SheMelachto LeIsser. Paint brushes, all these things are examples of Kli SheMelachto LeIsser that would be forbidden to move on Shabbos. I want to go back a little bit to the things that you're allowed to move on Shabbos that are not something forbidden on Shabbos. So we're going to go back, and this is what's called Kli SheMelachto LeIsser, because the reason why I learned the other dinam first is when you understand the dinam we just finished learning, it's called Kli SheMelachto LeIsser, then we'll understand things that might be halachically allowed to use or things that might not be allowed to use. For instance, generally speaking, watches, I'm not talking about electrical things. We learned before any electrical thing is considered in halacha Kli SheMelachto LeIsser, that you can only move if you need to place it to use something permissible. Okay, most watches, the new iPhone watches, you're probably not allowed to wear on Shabbos for a lot of reasons, but a normal, simple watch, you're allowed to wear on Shabbos. Okay, next. Now, the bottom line of games and toys and sporting goods, okay? The bottom line of this whole din is very simple. If you're allowed to play the game on Shabbos, it's not Muktzeh. If it's forbidden to play the game on Shabbos, and for the various reasons we'll mention, then that game, because you're not allowed to play it on Shabbos, has a din of Kli SheMelachto LeIsser. For instance, board games. Now, any game that involves that the normal way of playing the game is with writing. Okay? Many games that you play, you keep score. So for instance, a game like Scrabble, where normally you play the game of Scrabble and you keep score to see who's winning. So because it's a game that's you normally play with writing, so you're not allowed to play it on Shabbos. Therefore, a Scrabble set is Kli SheMelachto LeIsser. Now, that means if I want to use it for something permissible, I would be allowed to use it. For instance, I want to teach a child the ABC. I want to teach a child ABC. And the Scrabble has all the letters of the alphabet. So I want to teach a kid, this is an A, this is a B, this is a C. So then you're using the game for something permissible. You're not playing the game in a way that you're playing the game of keeping score. You're just showing kids letters, A, B, C, D, or you want to show them the way you spell out their name. Now, it's very important to keep in mind, and most of the new ones are a problem, but there is regular Scrabble and there is the deluxe Scrabble. The regular Scrabble was the old timers Scrabble board. It was a plain board, no grooves in it. It was just a plain flat board, and you put the letters out and and get the score. Double word, triple word, whatever. So those games are forbidden to play anyway, because Scrabble, you're right to keep score. But their deluxe Scrabble set is a bigger problem. The deluxe Scrabble set is made in a way that the letters hold firmly in the grooves. And therefore it's made that you could spin it and the letters don't fall apart. The words don't fall apart. That is a question of writing on Shabbos. Even though you're not writing, but you're taking letters and you're firmly putting them next to each other. See, in the old Scrabble games, where there was no grooves, that wasn't called writing. You're just taking letters and putting it next to each other. That's not called writing. In the deluxe Scrabble game, you're actually putting the letters firmly in the groove. That is forbidden for a second reason, not only because you're keeping score, because it's Kli SheMelachto LeIsser. But in that case, if you want to show a kid how to write out a word, you wouldn't be allowed to use that set on Shabbos anyway, because you're forming words in a firm way. But if the Scrabble set was left on the kitchen table, dining room table, and you want to move it away. So then again, it's Kli SheMelachto LeIsser. You want to move it, you're allowed to move it if you need tzedek gufi mekayim. The same thing applies, for instance, and it's another interesting thing. In old halacha, we're talking halacha 700 years ago, 500 years ago, when you look in those poskim, you'll find mentioned that it's forbidden to play chess on Shabbos. Why did they write it was forbidden to play chess on Shabbos? Because years ago, and the professionals still do this today, when you play chess, they would write down their moves. That was part of the game. You made a move with the chess piece, you wrote down your move. So again, because chess was played but with writing, then you're not allowed to play chess on Shabbos. That's what it says in old halacha. In modern day halacha, in contemporary times, most people, again, besides the professionals, most people today don't write down moves in chess. Therefore, halachically, chess is a game. I'm not saying it's in the spirit of Shabbos. A person should spend the whole Shabbos playing chess. But halachically, chess is not forbidden to play on Shabbos. Therefore, a chess set is Kli SheMelachto LeIsser, which is for permissible usage. It's not Muktzeh at all. So if you left it on the table, you didn't, you want to move it, whatever, even if you don't need the place, you would be allowed to move a chess set or a Scrabble set on Shabbos. Now, you have, one second. You know what? If you have a comment, please write it in the comments and I'll answer it. If somebody, a bicycle, now there's a big controversy. A lot of the Sephardic opinions hold you can ride bikes on Shabbos. It's even questionable if they said it or not. But the bottom line is, most Ashkenazic, in fact, probably all Ashkenazic authorities, say you're not allowed to ride a two-wheeler on Shabbos because the chain might fall off and you might fix it. The air might come out of the tires and you might blow it up. All those things are called tikkun mona, fixing things on Shabbos, which is forbidden. So therefore, it's forbidden to ride a two-wheeler on Shabbos, even if you're riding in your backyard, even if you're writing it in a place where there's an Eruv, even if you're writing it on Yom Tif, the majority or the vast majority of Ashkenazic opinions say you're not allowed to, we'll get to backgammon soon. You're not allowed to ride a two-wheeler on Shabbos. Therefore, a two-wheeler is Kli SheMelachto LeIsser. Its primary use is for something forbidden. Therefore, if you left your bike outside in the front and you're afraid it's going to get stolen, you are not allowed to bring the bike in on Shabbos. It's not tzedek gufi, it's not tzedek mekayim. You're moving it that shouldn't get stolen. Kli SheMelachto LeIsser, a vessel's primary use is for something forbidden, is not allowed to be moved on Shabbos unless if you need the place, or you want to use something permissible with it. Tricycles. I'll answer all these questions in the chat in a second. Tricycles is not a problem because there's no chain to fall off and you don't fill up the tires with air. So again, if you're talking about in a public place where there's no Eruv, then you can't ride a tricycle, it's carried. But you're talking about little kids riding a tricycle in their backyard, they're allowed to ride a tricycle. And therefore, it's Kli SheMelachto LeIsser. If it's a vessel which is permissible usage, then it's okay. Now, three questions were asked. One question was, what about backgammon, sheish beish, as they call it? Sheish beish, again, is it something people should do, occupy themselves with the whole Shabbos? No. But are you allowed to play backgammon on Shabbos? Yes, because there's no pieces going into grooves, there's no writing down, and therefore it would be allowed. Second question, is this based on how an individual usually plays the game, or how most people generally play the game? The answer is, it goes by the way most people play the game. If most people play the game in a way that you write down the score, then you're not allowed to do it. Okay, one more question was he asked. Can I keep score using pages of a book while playing Scrabble? No. Again, because the game is normally played with writing, then you're not allowed to do it. By the way, somebody writes they see a little difference between regular Scrabble and chess. It's not true. Scrabble, you keep score. Chess, you don't keep score of additions and subtractions that you have to write it down. Yeah, in your mind, you're thinking the moves, but it's not anything that in that case would be in any way writing whatsoever. Okay, let's move on.
Rabbi, sorry, what about Shabbos lights? Are you allowed to turn the thing to turn it down?
Discussed last time that those things you're allowed to move to turn the light higher or lower. All you're doing is moving something. Okay. Now, building blocks. This is very important. So there's different types of building blocks. You have building blocks that, little kids play. You just take one piece of wood, put it on another piece of wood. Nothing's holding it. It's not tightly, firmly placed into place. Those blocks are not a problem playing with on Shabbos, because you're not doing anything. You're just putting one thing on top of the next. But things that are interlocking, such as Lego, Tinker Toys. So in contemporary halacha, there are those that permit it. Many poskim don't. And the truth of the matter is, somebody really should be machmer. I'm not talking about kids under 6. If kids under 6 want to play Legos, they can play Legos. Can an adult help them with it? No. But again, if you can't play with Legos, then it's Kli SheMelachto LeIsser. Then you can't move it unless you need the place, or you want to use it as to lift up a book or whatever. The same thing, jigsaw puzzles. Jigsaw puzzles, I'm not talking about the little kids one, the 4 thing you just put in big pieces. A jigsaw puzzle is forbidden to do on Shabbos. You're actually forming a shape, a size, a picture. That's called writing. And because you're writing basically through the puzzle, you're not allowed to play jigsaw puzzles on Shabbos. Because you're not allowed to play with jigsaw puzzles on Shabbos, it's Kli SheMelachto LeIsser. Therefore, you can only move it if you need the place. Somebody left it on the table or on the floor and people are walking there, then you can pick it up and move it. Or if you want to use it again to prop up a book or something like that. But a jigsaw puzzle itself is Kli SheMelachto LeIsser, and you can't move it to anything else unless if it's a permissible use. Next.
Magnet tiles, Rabbi. Magnet tiles.
Magnet tiles, again, if they're interlocking, then you're not allowed.
Magnetic.
If it's magnetic, then you are allowed to, according to most opinions. We didn't get to magnets yet, but according to most opinions, I saw an opinion that says magnets are Muktzeh and Shabbos. But all the other opinions that I've seen hold magnets are not Muktzeh and Shabbos, because it's just putting one thing on top of the next. You're not interlocking it. It's similar, by the way, to like Velcro. You have something Velcro, you're allowed to close it and open it on Shabbos. Why isn't that called sewing or unsewing? The answer is because they're not connecting together. They're going into each other. It's not a form of, if you look at it very carefully, you're not connecting, they're not interlocking. They're just fitting into each other. It's not a level of sewing whatsoever. Everybody's matter Velcro on Shabbos. You can use Velcro on Shabbos because it's not any different than a zipper where you zipper it up, you're sewing and you open the zipper, then you're unsewing and you're tearing whatever it is. That's what it's made for, and that's the way it is. So Velcro things are not Muktzeh. Magnets are not Muktzeh. In fact, somebody asked me an interesting shaila the other day, this week. They have an aquarium that the what do you call the algae gets stuck to the wall of the aquarium, and there's a magnet. You have an aquarium. There's a magnet that you have, like a brush that's a magnet, and when you hold it up against the wall, the window of the aquarium, and you move it, it removes all the algae. Yeah, algae, whatever. You got the point. It moves all the algae. It actually cleans the window. So the guy first called me. He told me, no, it takes out the dirt from inside the aquarium. So he said, then you can't do it. Then you're separating bad from good. Then he called me back to say, no, it doesn't do that. It just cleans the window. The magnet, actually, you move it around on the glass, and the algae that's stuck on the glass, it gets pushed away, so you clean the glass. If that's the case, you're allowed to clean a glass on Shabbos. It's not baited, and therefore then you can use it. Now, let's get one last thing before we go to Tanya. Baseballs, balls, soccer ball, volleyball. It's a machlekes in halacha. Interesting. If a ball is Muktzeh on Shabbos. Okay. Now, the Rebbe brings down both opinions. Now, the Rebbe writes the world is lenient when it comes to balls that they're not Muktzeh on Shabbos. So a regular ball, a bat, a ball, a baseball glove, all those, a soccer ball. Now, you can't play soccer. First of all, besides the fact it's not in the spirit of Shabbos to play ball. The Kli SheMelachto brings down a Yerushalmi that says that in the time of the Bais Din, there was a large neighborhood in Yerushalayim that was destroyed because the people played ball on Shabbos. So again, is it in the spirit of Shabbos to play ball? The answer is no. But can little kids play ball? Are they Muktzeh? A ball is not Muktzeh. A bat is not Muktzeh. All those types of gloves and things like that. Now, soccer, you can't play on grass. Even if you're allowed to carry, let's say there's an air, whatever. When a person plays soccer on grass, inevitably you are ripping up grass. There's no way you can play soccer on grass without ripping up grass, and it's a psik reisha. And to cut grass on Shabbos is biblically forbidden. So therefore, even though your intent when you play soccer is not to uproot grass, but bottom line is, as we learned in psik reisha, it's for sure going to happen, and therefore you wouldn't be allowed to play soccer on Shabbos. La halacha you can. If you're playing on a gravel field or cemented, parking lot or things like that, then halachically you're allowed to play soccer on Shabbos. Again, is it the real spirit of Shabbos? No, it's not. Okay, we're going to go to Tanya.